Hello everyone. Today I wanted to share with you another quilt story. This time it's time for the modern take on the memory quilt. And I call it modern because obviously it has the look of a modern quilt. For people who don't know, modern quilts are usually defined as a bit more abstract, a bit more solid, which means non-pattern fabrics and bigger shapes, and usually a lot of quilting in the empty spaces, you call this. I didn't do a lot of quilting in the empty spaces because that's not necessarily my style and I liked it like it was now. But it is modern in its abstractness and it doesn't have a lot of distractions. And I wanted to show that an old concept like the memory quilt, where you use clothes that have a special meaning to you, that you can also use them in this way. Usually it has a very scrappy look, but it doesn't have to. Because this quilt, it would suit very well in a modern interior of people who are more into minimalism maybe even, or maybe in a fancy cafe and stuff like that. And you can still honor some fabrics that have a story to you. In this case, I used a men's shirt. These two I got from a lady whose husband died, but these ones are for my grandfather. So whenever you have this modern quilt in your house, I am reminded of my grandfather, who is also actually kind of a modern man with his 83 plus years, because he always looks fancy, he reads modern books, and he knows a lot. He would have been professor definitely if he had the chance, but he grew up in a farmer family, so he just worked. The design of this quilt is also modern in that it has an experimentation with a traditional block. People who follow me longer probably know this one. It's the pinwheel block. I use it for my sampler quilt. It's one of the basic patterns I teach people because it's very versatile. And then with the help of like conversion and diversion, I changed the shape of the block. It has to do with perspective, and I don't know how to say it in English, verdwijnpunten. If you draw perspective, you usually have a point where the lines go, and I made the points following the lines a little bit, here I think and here, and then you can change the shape of the blocks. In that way you can play with shapes and you can get inspired by the different shapes they get. So instead of only triangles, it has a diamond shape, for example. And using this technique is an interesting way to design your quilts, because it redesigns a traditional block, and combining it like this, I think it makes a more lively and interesting looking quilt than only the traditional block. Because the traditional block is nice as well, but if you use many of them in a square, it's usually a bit static. So that's also what's modern about this quilt. I made it for an exhibition with my quilting group, the Moqing bees, and we all made conversions of traditional blocks. And the cool thing of making things with groups is that you see the style of everybody. Everybody has their own quilt. I absolutely wanted to do it with recycled clothes because that's what I do as a sustainable quilter. But other people, they really love round shapes, or they really love to have bold statements, so their quilt looks very different. I don't have photos of their quilts now, but maybe I can share them later if they allow me. It's going to be in an exhibition in, I think, March in the Netherlands. I'm not sure what the date is. It's a mini quilt, which means that this is the max allowed size. And the overlap between our quilts is the dark blue and the red fabric. So that's why I quilted the disappearing lines like that, to add an extra effect and also to add some color to the quilt. Because I noticed when I only had like the blocks and the shirts, it was a bit boring, and I like to add some sass and some cheer, so that's the red in this case. And all of us use red. And there's one more reason why it's a sustainable quilt. That is because I used an old shirt as backing, and there's also a sweater inside, because you can buy filling, but you can also upcycle it, because sweaters I usually find they're a bit sturdy, and that's good for a mini quilt because then it hangs nicely. And I love the flowers, and I like the idea of having a modern, abstract looking quilt and crazy flowers at the back. So this is kind of how you can also make a memory quilt. That's what I wanted to share with you. Society stress will be a treasure, and follow me for more quilt stories and to learn how to quilt yourself. Thank you.